Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Scot Ginsburg with us. And Scott, it's great to have you. You are in the tenant rep side of the equation, which in 300 podcasts, I don't think I've talked with many tenant rep people. So it's great to have you. I just love to hear kind of how you got into the tenant rep side and what's happening now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, Bruce. Great to meet you again. And quick background, how I got into tenant representation. Well, I've always grown up with, an interest in real estate per se. My family dibbled and dabbled in it. They were not real estate moguls, but for example, like my grandparents owned a triplex in the LA area. I saw my uncle own an office building up in the high desert. My friend's father were real estate residential developers. So I just always saw that, hey, you own something tangible, a structure, you get mailbox money, right? So that's really all I knew at the end of the day. But my undergrad through college was biology pre-medicine. And as I was studying for the MCAT tests in the mid to late 90s, obviously the internet was booming. And a buddy of mine from high school, we started an internet company that ran for a few years until everything kind of just broke apart. And long story short, just to make ends meet, I taught myself how to code, and I was working as a web developer for a company down in South San Diego. I got fired because the guy thought I was a spy. I was still keeping my online auction internet company going. And I came back, and my wife was crying they get fired. We had no money, zero. I remember our weekends were like $20 to go to dinner at Rubio's or something. And she's like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Screw it." I go, "I'm going to get into real estate." And she's like, "How?" So I knew a friend that I went to San Diego State. He went to USD at the same time, kind of in parallel. And I called him up, and he basically kind of gave me the lowdown. He's like, "Hey, you can represent landlords, you can do investment sales, you could do this, you could do that. You could represent tenants." I'm like, "Tenants?" So the reason why that was interesting to me, because when we had this internet company, I was the tenant. I personally had to sign the office lease. I got completely hosed. The company that I worked represented my small company to lease office space, represented not only tenants, they represented landlords. It was a terrible deal. I had to personally guarantee the lease and a lot of other problems. So long story short, it was interesting for me to understand that I could go in and protect the tenant just because I had a personal experience with that. And there was not a lot of companies hiring at the time. This was in springtime of 2000. And I found a guy that just gave me an opportunity. He just said, "Hey man, here's a phone, here's a desk." And 26 years later, that's all I've been doing is representing tenants. That's all my company does. Hughes Marino is represent tenants. But that's the long and the short of it, how I got into the business and the specialty, the expertise in representing tenants.
Well, you worked for Roger Staubach, as I recall, and that was probably great training for you.
Right. Awesome company. So I worked at a one-man shop, so to speak, my first 18 months, 24 months in the business in San Diego. And my expertise, because I was a biology undergrad, my boss said, "Hey, specialize in biotech," because obviously the three main hubs in the US for biotechnology companies are San Diego, the Bay Area, and Boston, right? Those are the top tier. And so that was about half my business. The other half was technology because I'm a diehard tech fan. But long story short, I started getting more sophisticated clientele who needed larger space, more complex space with laboratory infrastructure and or technology infrastructure. Because at the time, data warehousing, server rooms, IT, connectivity, all that was pretty prominent. Then it died out. Now it's coming back again. But long story short, after about 2 years, the company that I was with, I realized just did not have a bench strength. Went back to my buddy who got me in the business. He says, you got to start calling on all these other companies. And he named Rogers' company called the Staubach Company, and they were nationally known to only represent tenants. And so I was fortunate enough to get hired there and became a principal, until the company sold.
Oh, oh, ha. All right, well, I guess we're back.
We cut. Yeah,
Yeah.
it dropped you.
Well, wow, we came back though. Well, okay, you were up to biotech. Let's see if we can just chop that part out and start over where we were. So go ahead. You were with Roger Staubach. You had learned about tech and biotech. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, but I don't know where you lost me, so I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I lost you, I think, at biotech and Roger Staubach. So,
Oh, I think I was saying, over the course of my 18 to 24 months, I was specializing in biotech and technology type of companies to represent. And so my clients became more sophisticated. The space type that they needed became more sophisticated. Laboratory infrastructure, biotechnology laboratory infrastructure, technology infrastructure, because that was kind of the boom of the data, the old data centers, not the AI data centers as we have today. The server rooms. There was no cloud storage back in the late 90s and the 2000s. Everybody had their own server room. So long story short, as my clients became more sophisticated, the small one-man shop that I was with for a couple of years, he had no bench strength. So I went back to my friend, hey, what other companies can I work at? And he suggested I call on these other companies that had much more of a prominent name and a better bench strength, so to speak. And so one of them was Roger Staubach that I called on. And they were at the time the top national firm that represented solely tenants, not landlords, just only tenants. And so it was about a 60 office company, about 1,000 professionals. And I was at that company, worked my way up to shareholder to principal back in '08, and before the company sold to a larger kind of full service firm that represents both landlords and tenants.
and at that point, you decided to go out on your own.
No, at that point, the company sold to a firm called Jones Lang LaSalle, a competitor to CBRE and Cushman and Wakefield. Those are kind of like the big boys. They want to control everything, all the tenants, all the landlords, highly conflicted. They also own real estate. Well, like in any service firm, when the service firm gets bought, all the widgets, all the providers, or all the producers, I should say, i.e. me, all the Scott Ginsburgs, you get locked up. And so you have an earn out over a period of time. So after about 4 years, I left. It just wasn't a good fit for me. I really wanted to stick with a tenant only firm. There was too many conflicts. So since 2012, I've been at a national company now called Hughes Marino. We started in San Diego. We're homegrown in San Diego. And now we've got 6 offices around the country. And we're the largest exclusive solely owned tenant representation company in the US.
Wow.
Yeah.
So take me back to biotech for a minute. I've never done a biotech transaction, but I've heard that they need higher ceilings. It's a little more difficult kind of setup. So give me a little clue about how that all goes together.
So yeah, it's actually behind the walls, so to speak. So, if you got to break down real estate transactions from the simplistic point of view, not demeaning anybody, but if you look at residential real estate, there's not a lot of knowledge needed for the type of real estate construction, the mechanical systems, it's all about finding the property and does it look pretty and is it functional? That's it. There's nothing to negotiate really, right? Well, in commercial real estate, if you kind of break it down in simplicity, office and warehousing typically are the simplest, are the easiest to work on because it's functional. You're finding a space, granted, notwithstanding the construction of the build out, which is a whole nother complexity. But when you get into specialized operators, tenants that need laboratory, great. half of the space prototypically is built out as laboratory space where you have, if you remember high school or college chemistry, right? The hoods, the benches, all that stuff. And then the other half is just office space. Okay, great. Well, what makes all of that space run are mechanical and power, right?
Mm.
So typically you need to look at the infrastructure of the building. And a lot of tenants will be more chemistry oriented. Some of them will be more biological oriented. And those will swing how the space is built out. As an example, a company that needs a very heavy chemistry base, so they need more hoods, more chemical hoods. That building has to have a lot more mechanical, more air conditioning, more air handling. Hence, you can't do it in every building. You need to have much higher clear heights. So in other words, like 14 feet versus maybe a normal office building, 12 feet, because you have to get all the mechanical ducting from the ceiling or, from the roof, let's just say, down to the ceiling, and it doesn't fit in every building. So it's more important to understand kind of the makeup and the structure of the facility, the power specifications, backup power, just everything that a company needs to survive. Because if the lights go out, the science is at stake, and these companies lose millions and billions of dollars of research. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, and hence why you need a tenant rep side or somebody that understands biotech much more than sort of a normal broker, so to speak.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm giving you one kind of little subset of I guess I would say the main difference, if you will, between those two buildings. Not to say the function isn't important, the location, et cetera, but you remember during the COVID times, every biotech company is getting funding. Remember all the funding that was going around during COVID? It was crazy. Companies were raising in the mid nine figures.
Mm.
Okay, so here's what happened. Landlords that did not do laboratory or biotech space build out before, they got hosed. So what I mean by that is this. You can convert an existing office or an existing industrial building from its current use to laboratory. But some convert a lot better, right? Some have the power, some don't. And to get the upgraded power might take 2 years. Some you can easily get all the mechanical stuffed in, what you call the plenum, above the ceiling grid and below the roof line. Some don't work that well. So as the demand for life science or biotech space just took off because of all the funding, there zero. There was no demand. So then all of the life science or biotech real estate developers rushed in, bought existing office, bought existing industrial buildings, and converted it to laboratory space as much as they could. Well, some of it converted great,
Mm.
some of it not so well.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
hence the importance to know the real estate on its structure as a fundamental starting point. What can work, what cannot work.
So you're saying basically during the pandemic, things went crazy in biotech, and now things have calmed down
Right.
substantially from there. And are things starting to come back up again? What's happening?
Well, in the life science space, not so much. It has been a long slog. Basically, the real estate development cycle, it went so hard during the COVID boom that the supply increased by about 50%.
Wow.
And since the COVID funding drop off in late 21, the market, is it better now? A little bit, but most of the new buildings in the Bay, up in
Mm.
San Francisco, in San Diego, as well as Boston, they've been vacant for 3 to 4 years. Some of
Wow.
the buildings have gone back to the bank. Some of them are holding on. But in all markets, all of us professionals kind of figure that there's probably plus or minus 7 to 10 years of supply on the market.
Oh, wow.
Because you've got it, you also have to consider that I'll use a baseline number for San Diego. So uh, in San Diego, if a developer came in and bought an existing building to convert it, they probably bought it for 400, 500, 600 per square foot. Okay.
Mm.
Then they probably put that much, another 500 a foot, into the building to convert it to laboratory use. So let's just say they're all in for 1,000. Let's say in the Bay, they're all in for 2,000, whatever the number is, but my metrics will apply. So if you take all of the new real estate product that was bought during the COVID peak, either as an existing laboratory building or bought and converted, they're at the cost basis of that is very, very high.
Right, right.
They were underwrote at a market rent that was at the peak during COVID. Well, those market rents aren't there anymore. So if you look at all of the other real estate owners that have owned a real estate product that bought in the mid-teens or way before COVID, they're in these buildings for half. They could still make money and undercut all of the new development. So the guys that are holding this new real estate conversion or even new real estate product, if they bought and built direct, at the end of the day, they're all in a loss leader position because if they're going to go, when they underwrote these buildings, let's say back in 2020, 21, at 1,000 a foot, they have to get a $6 per foot per month rent. Well, rents in today are $4 to $5.
Oh, wow.
So for them to meet market demand, they have a negative return. So, if you're a landlord that has buildings that were existing and your cost basis is well below that, let's just say for the San Diego market, $1,000 a foot, or San Francisco, 2,000, whatever the number is, or even Boston, it's the same with all the markets that the existing landlords with the cost basis pre-COVID can still afford to do market deals and have a positive return, where the guys that bought during COVID and or converted, they're upside down. Market rents are there. Yeah. So all of us are kind of scratching our head. We would have thought more buildings would be going back to the bank by now, but they haven't. A lot of them are holding on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's flip to the tech side. What's happening on the tech side of the equation?
Well, from the tech side, a lot are obviously, well, I should say it this way. Most technology companies, a lot of them nowadays, especially in AI, they just need, co-working space. They don't need a lot of office space. But the two markets, you probably know this. I just wrapped up a project in Manhattan in New York. The two markets that have been on fire with AI companies leasing and turning around the office markets are New York and San Francisco. But, in terms of the other markets as it relates to technology companies, they're kind of, in the mix with every other office user where they don't need all the office space anymore. There's the flight to quality. If you're somewhere in Southern California, let's say, let's go closer to the beach and chop our office space by half and get closer to amenities. If, similar other areas, in the central part of the US where, if you're going to cut your office space in half, why not upgrade? Why not get better space? So amenities have really driven this market cycle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your crystal ball saying? Obviously, you've mentioned the life science side has probably got 7 years to come back. What's happening otherwise?
Right. Well, in terms of the 7 years to come back for biotech, that's probably within the real estate market. But in the last, let's say, 18 months, the life science funding has absolutely come back much greater than it was 3 years ago. Now, granted, that hasn't translated into a ton of new real estate leasing or what we call net absorption. In other words, how much square footage was leased this quarter versus the prior quarter, so to speak. Because a lot of them, just like the tech sector, once the market goes ripping hot and then there's a market crash, what does everybody do the next time the market starts to lift again? Paranoia, clamp down. Let's be more conservative this time around, right? So people are doing shorter. They're not going to want to just be overly ambitious and sign long-term deals and take 2x the space. So all of this money hasn't translated into a market force where real estate's just tearing white hot at this moment. No,
not happening. So
not happening. Yeah, there's exactly.
Leases, smaller spaces,
shorter terms, right? Shorter terms. I will tell you that I'm in the process of a couple of projects now. In my 26 years, it's been the best time I'm in the works right now it is the by far the best deal I've ever gotten a customer in my entire career
In
for
terms of
life
rate
science.
and terms?
The mark it's about a market rent in that $5 mark, but the amount of free rent
Mm,
that they're providing is just unfathomable.
yeah.
Nobody's ever even seen it. I've told a few people, just coworkers, and they're like, "How the hell did you get that?" And I just said, "Look, market timing." I pressed hard, and candidly, it's a good customer, and the landlord really wanted to just quote unquote buy the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they bought the deal.
they,
So I would say that in 26 the market is obviously a lot better than 3 years ago, but people are more conservative. AI is booming, DoD is booming, but as it relates to just regular technology, biotechnology sectors, it's a lot better than what it was. It's not white hot by any means.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, being on the tenant side, are you going mostly by word of mouth or how are you marketing yourselves?
Yeah, but by word of mouth, I've done a fair amount of these podcasts. I wrote a book in 21 called "It's Not All About the Rent," which has been pretty fruitful. I do a lot of direct marketing. I use LinkedIn a lot, direct reaches. I would say probably that's the majority of my marketing.
Are you in the cold call world, the warm call world?
I do mostly warm calls, but I will tell you, I've made my fair share of cold calls over the years. Hands
Well,
Yes,
I'm sure that Roger, that
you
was a
have
big deal
to.
for Roger. You got to hammer the phones.
I tell people this. Everybody thinks like being a venture capitalist is super sexy and everything, right? And
Yeah.
I said, you know how you get started? I know it's because I've flat out asked venture capitalists. I've worked with them before. I said, you know how they start in venture cap? How? I go, you know what those guys do to raise money? They cold call. How
They
do you think?
call.
How do you think business goes around? Nobody just granted, if your business is all online, but if you're doing anything with high-end dollar sales, placing money, that's like, how do you think SpaceX raises billions of dollars? They go out, they cut up the $1 billion they're trying to raise, and they go out to all of the investment firms they work with, and they each takes 100 million. Then you know what all those advisors do? They cold call their clients. That's what they do. Everybody thinks that like cold calling is a dirty word. That's how pretty much every company does some form of cold calling. I mean, if you're in biotech, oh, we don't cold call. Yeah, you do when you raise money. What do you think they're
Oh, yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody does it. That's how business works.
It's how the world has worked. No doubt about it.
100%. Yeah.
Well, well, this has been very fun and very educational for me, and I think for the rest of the audience. So, Scott, where can people get a hold of you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Scott Ginsburg, and Scott's with one T, so ScotGinsburg. I believe my email's on there. If not, send me a connection or an in-mail and connect with me. I think that's the easiest. That way you won't get blocked by email spam. Or do you have my email address up, Bruce, or
I
no?
do. Yeah, it's
Okay.
right there.
Or my email, Scott.Ginsburg with Hughes Marino, or sorry, I can't speak. Scott.Ginsburg at HughesMarino.com.
So, Scott with one T and Ginsburg with a U instead of an E, and off we go from there.
Off you go.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.